How's it going, guys? Welcome to Audio Addiction. We have Clarity back on again. This is the third time they've been on, and I love talking to Andy. And well, I wish Riki was here because I love talking with him too. But anyway, you can say his name, which I've already said, and what he does in the band.
Hey, yeah. Well, it's good to be back on Audio Addiction.
Woo!
Yeah, it was one of our first ever media appearances, so it's great to be back again. I'm Andy. I'm the singer in Clarity. We're a Tokyo-based. I don't know what anyone else wants to call us, but we've taken to calling ourselves Newcore. Um,
Ooh, okay.
and yeah, Riki has been in interviews that we've done with Audio Addiction before. He's our lead guitar player and currently our art director.
Oh,
Which is a new thing, but has worked out very well, I think. And then the other members obviously are all busy with their own thing. We got Maki on bass and Kai on our rhythm guitar, bringing our gent riffs. Um, yeah, but the Riki was on the last time, but he's busy today. Unfortunately, he can't make it, so I'm
oh,
soloing this one.
yeah. It's like old times. If you've watched, I have to throw it back for a second because I rewatched our first interview. And I
Oh
was
yeah,
like, "Oh my god, this was not good." I could say that with so much surety that it was not good, you know. But I feel like I leave it there not only for the sheer fact that I love talking to Andy, for one of many reasons, but I would say I love talking to Andy as well as that was the first interview I had ever done. So I want to say that Andy's was the first band that I had ever interviewed on the entire channel. And now I've been doing it for 7.5 years. So I feel like Andy is always going to hold a special place in my heart, and same with Clarity. So I feel like I always have to have them on. And
right back
third,
at you, bro.
the new song. Shreds. If you haven't checked it out, I'll leave a link to the reaction video. Also, go check out Nightlife. They're awesome as well. They crushed it. Shout outs to Hansel. Come on the show, Hansel. I'd love to have you on. But yeah, oh my God, it was such a great song, and I think that with each new release, you somehow like set the bar a little bit higher every time, you know? Like I think
Thank you
this
so much.
one I would say you said new core. I would say you guys are kind of like pop core, like
Mm.
maybe R&B core kind of, you know? You had a little bit of that, and then at the end there was a little jazz, you know? I like that. You know, you hit me right in the feels. So I was vibing out. But kind of to go through some of the stuff that I missed out on because the last time I had you and Riki on, that was roughly 2 years ago. So there was some
Yeah.
stuff that happened in between. So what kind of went on between? I think you did release the the Light of Lies Part 2. I know I absolutely butchered that in the reaction video, so that I did correct myself. So you can see my cliff notes in the thing. I think I said in the Lies of Light. I definitely butchered it, but
It's
I
cool. It's cool.
remember they released a record. That's the most
Yeah.
important thing.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
Andy, you can
Well,
tell people what's going on.
sure, yeah. Like because we've always been like up until now we've always been quite like a lot slower in our activities than anyone would have liked, especially us ourselves, you know.
Sure, sure, sure.
And so like then just when we finally kind of started getting some momentum, Corona, COVID hit and messed everything up, right? So we released two EPs a few years ago. It was In the Light of Lies Part One and then In the Light of Lies Part Two. And then last year we mashed them both together and released them physically as an album,
Hmm.
just called In the Light of Lies. And we haven't actually put that on Spotify or Apple Music yet because like the songs are basically there anyway. But you can buy the CD on our website or you can buy the album in full from Bandcamp as well. So that's what the last thing we did, and it felt kind of like it was cool to finally get that album out. But at the same time, last year felt very odd for us because it was the first year in a while that we hadn't released anything new.
Yeah.
Because like it was an album and technically that was a new release, but it was made up of all the old songs, you know. So it was like I don't know. It didn't. It felt good to finally get it out, but it felt more. It felt more like you know that like when you release a new song, it kind of feels like you're opening a book for the first time, you know, and it's
Sure.
like
Yeah.
oh wow, where's this book going to take me? You know, I'm going to enjoy this adventure. This one felt more like closing a book. You
Sure.
know, it
Okay.
was like, oh, that's the end of that era now. You know, and it was satisfying, but it didn't feel like exciting. You know,
Sure. Sure. Sure.
um, and so. we were finished with it, and it was like this moment of, okay, well, what do we do now? You know, because because we'd been like kind of, what's the phrase? Like we've been kind of just following our nose for most of our
Sure,
time.
sure,
Like
sure, yeah.
we didn't really have a plan. We were just kind of writing songs, recording them, and then thinking about how to put them together afterwards. And so it was all done. It was finished. And now we were like, okay, what do we do now? So we didn't really know what we wanted to do exactly, but we knew all four of us had the same opinion that we didn't want to do the same stuff again.
Sure, 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 yeah.
But you know, that's a difficult thing to work with because you're starting from a negative. You know, it's like, I don't know what I want to do. I just know I don't want to do that. And so it's not very helpful, you know, it's not very practical. So we played around with a bunch of different ideas, and then it was kind of a perfect storm of a few different things coming together. On the one hand, we started to notice that there was a strange phenomenon happening with us locally here in Japan, in that people seemed to not view us as a Japanese act.
Hmm.
Probably because my pasty white face was in the front of all the photos.
That's
So,
fair,
like,
yeah.
so yeah. So like in the beginning, I think when we formed, it was quite unusual for like a non-Japanese guy to front a Japanese group. But
Sure,
in the
yeah.
time since, that's not really uncommon anymore. Now there's quite a lot of bands like that, and so we felt like there was this weird disconnect between us and our local audience.
Scene, yeah.
Yeah, and so that was there on one hand, right? So that's kind of in the back of our minds while we're working on this. We're becoming aware of that. And then at the same time, there's this huge uh, boom in popularity, all not just in Japan but all over the world, for like 1980s Japanese music,
Sure,
um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
city pop, right? Like Maria Takeuchi, Plastic Love, and like all these songs suddenly catching on, like taking on this new life as almost like as memes, but not in a like making fun of them way, but like people are getting into it and realizing that it was actually pretty cool. And then
Sure,
even
yeah.
here locally, like there's clothing brands that are reaching back for imagery and iconography from the 80s, and it's all dope. It looks great, feels great, and this is also happening kind of while we're working on new music. And so I came to me after and was like, listen, this might sound kind of mad, but I think I can make gent city pop, right? And I was like, okay, that sounds insane, but like I do want to hear it, right?
Yeah,
And so he
show me,
showed
yeah.
me, yeah, he showed me this little demo that he put together, and it was like, it wasn't great, like, because demos are never usually great, right?
Sure,
But
yeah.
the idea was cool. Like I got what he was trying to do, and then the more we started working on it and developing a few different ideas around it, and then the more we developed it, the more I realized that actually we had been kind of doing this anyway. Like we have a song called "Man Fears the Dark,"
Yes, I was gonna
and
say, yeah.
the intro to that, the gent riff and the kind of that whole thing, if you twisted the arrangement and pulled the distorted guitars out, that could be a city pop track. Like
Sure,
it's got
yeah.
that kind of groovy kind of staccato, like the, you know, the, what's the word? I can't remember the word now, but that kind of bass line. And
Yeah.
so I was like, oh crap, this might actually be the thing. Like this might be, because we kind of already been doing it, right? This might be what we've been trying to do.
Yeah.
So, and also it would also handle the first problem, in that it would help us reclaim an element of our Japanese identity, right? Because that sound is distinctively Japanese and everyone
Sure.
recognizes it as
Yeah.
Japanese. And so drawing on that might help us with that problem too. So we explored it and we tried a bunch of different stuff out, and couldn't quite get it to work. Um, it just wasn't quite coming together, and we weren't really sure what we were doing wrong or what we should do differently. And then, like almost like a sign from the gods, like Nightlife released New Low.
Yes. Oh, fantastic, yeah.
And I listened to it, and obviously Nightlife aren't influenced by city pop necessarily, because they have their own thing going on. You know, it's like soul punk, they call it, and it's
Sure,
influenced
yeah.
by R&B and that kind of stuff, and gospel and stuff. Um, but in it, I heard like it was heavy, but it had this undeniable kind of old style groove,
Sure.
and it had a pop sensibility like nothing I've heard in a long time, and the vocal harmony arrangements and stuff were like straight up like R&B classic
Yeah.
R&B gospel stuff,
Yeah.
and I
Oh,
was just
yeah.
like, okay, this is it. Like, these guys have cracked the code for how to fuse all these genres together. And again, I knew it wasn't city pop, but I had a feeling that Hansel would be able to guide us in a way. So
Mhm, mhm.
I reached out to him on Twitter. I just sent him a DM and I was like, "Hey, listen, man, like, you don't know who I am. I'm a big fan. We're all big fans here. We're trying to do this new thing and we can't really figure it out. Would you be open to having like a video call and maybe working together?" And he
Sure,
was
yeah.
really cool from the beginning. He was just like, "Yeah, yeah, let's have a call." So we had a call, and I showed him the demos we were working on, and it was like the most refreshing thing ever, because we were so kind of confused and lost about what we were doing. We knew that the idea had merit, but we were so wrapped up in getting it right that we kind of become like we lost our confidence in it, in a
Sure,
sense.
sure, sure. Yeah, yeah. The steam's gone.
Yeah, exactly. It was taking so long, and we were like, hadn't got anything to show for it really at that point, apart from a couple of demos that we didn't really like very much. And so we showed them to Hansel, and immediately he was like, "Oh yeah, I get it. Okay, cool. Yeah,
That's
like I see
awesome.
what you're doing."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he recommended like some artists to me. He was like, "Okay, look, I see what you're doing, but here's where you're going wrong. Check out like this Korean girl Yukika who's like working with city pop arrangements at the moment. Check her out. She's got some good stuff going." And he recommended all these artists, and just listening to it, we were like, "Yeah, okay, now we're starting to see the missing puzzle pieces." And we sent him two demos that we finally got to a point where we liked them, and he added bits and pieces to them and sent them back, and it was like, "Oh, there it is." Like,
Yeah, it was the lost treasure, you're
there's
like,
the
"Oh," yeah.
the puzzle, exactly, yeah, it was like that. And so that's kind of how we landed where we are right now. Yeah, that was a long answer. Sorry about that.
No, 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 no. You know I love long answers, but I think that was kind of like my initial reaction, no pun intended, to, True Romantic was like, I was like, there's just because I went back and listened to some old stuff. I went back and listened to Serenade, True Believer, Come Home, obviously OG, and then I
Okay.
have to listen to the first song of all time, In the End. You have to check that one out. If you're an OG fan, you need to check that one out. That's such a still a great song. But I think to me, it shows how much you guys have changed as a group. I think I've had the special pleasure of seeing your growth for 7 years. So I think for me it's like I go back and listen to In the End, and I still love that song. I still jam it every once in a while. And then I was in listen to the most newest song, True Romantic, and I was just like, wow, this is night and day. Like completely in a different direction. And I think like sonically, this it seems like you guys are just more comfortable. Like I think there something that like kind of the over edging theme, at least for me listening to it, was like I think they might have found what they were looking for. Like I feel like with maybe part one, I was like, I really enjoy this, and there was a lot of songs off the first part that I really enjoyed, and then I did go and listen to part two, which I haven't didn't even do a review on, which is my fault. But went back and listened to part two, and I was like, man, there's some really cool parts here. They went like a lot heavier, which I think more surprised about, because I was like, wow, okay, they went a little bit heavier, especially with Serenade. I was like, wow, this is incredibly heavy for like clarity stuff. And I think that you guys kind of like took a detour and then came back with True Romantic, and there was a lot more like layering. There's a lot more elements going on within the quality of the song. And I just think I think there's a good mix of like you can tell there's like a lot of soul, like R&B, like pop influence, but in this completely opposite end of the scale has got a very like really like rhythmic, genty, sort of bouncy guitar riffs that again mesh super well with the more like pop intricate laden like harmonies, like melodies, some like really cool like synth work, stuff like that I was like, I don't know how they balance those two things out, because I feel like in my head that gave me a headache a little bit, but in the same way I was like, this is so cool because it definitely meshes those two genres well. And I think the only band that I could really truly think of that did it very well was Issues. Like I think you guys definitely, to me, feel like wherever Issues left off, you guys are taking that mantle and moving the mantle even further down the line, which I love because I don't think there's a lot of bands really tapping into that whole city pop, like pop
Mm,
core kind of style
mm,
music where there's the intricacies of pop, which I've been talking about more recently, I would say over the past couple years of music, is that I used to think pop music was just like this regurgitated garbage that a lot of people listen to, right? But
yeah.
in reality, there's so much layering, there's so much effort that goes into it, and there's so much levels of critique that go far beyond metal artists. I think there's there's just a whole slew of pop artists that, especially the producer end of things, is just insane.
Mm,
So I would
mm,
highly recommend
yeah.
people going to, especially if you are like, "Oh, I don't like pop. I don't like pop." I would recommend just delving into it. Like I think that is the best way to do it. But I will say for me, like you guys hit that niche point of really cool pop stuff, really cool heavy stuff. How are you gonna mesh these two together? Why don't we just jam pack them together and then see what happens, right? And I think that to me is what True Romantics was just like this incredible fusion of pop, metal, jazz, R&B, like soul music that I was like, if there's anything, if the new stuff is a continuation of this, it's gonna be a good record or EP. I don't know what you have coming up down the pipeline, but I think you got some. I think you got some good stuff on your hands. If I had to place my bets.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can talk a little bit about what's next if you want. Like,
Yeah,
you're the
absolutely.
interviewer, so, like, whatever you want to know.
I want to know it all, Andy. Come on. I would expect you to spare no expense for me.
Right. Okay. Well, like in terms of what we're doing, I mean, I don't want to give everything away just yet,
Sure,
but
sure,
we
sure.
are we are working on we are working on an album.
Okay.
Um, and the whole thing with Hansel, it was presented to him as an album. So that is kind of the way we're thinking about it. Now, the next track is done, and the video is also done. So we haven't decided on a release date yet, but it's looking like it's going to be the end of August,
Okay. Not too
which
long.
is going to be the quickest turnaround between Clarity songs ever.
I was gonna say, yeah.
We kind of like, because the last one was so much kind of making it up as we go along, and it took so much time that when we set out to do this one, we were like, look, we don't want to do that again. This time, we want to get everything in order before we release anything, right?
Come
So
prepared.
like, get prepared, exactly. Have everything ready, and then show something to everybody, and then have the next thing queued up and ready to go before we even get started.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's what we've done. The next song is ready, and it'll be released sometime around the end of August. And there is a little teaser at the end of True Romantic video. Um, the next track's a little bit different, but not drastically different. I wouldn't say it's not quite as chaotic as True Romantic, if that's the right word to
That's
use.
fine.
Like,
Yeah, okay.
um, the the album is kind of based around. I don't want to get too deep into the reads about this because it's probably boring to everyone else. But like
No, no,
the
no, no. I love getting into the weeds, Andy. So
all right, cool.
you want to
Well,
say whatever you feel like you want to say about the album. I don't want you to say more than you want to feel
yeah, cool.
comfortable saying about. Yeah.
Well, no, it's like because it started when we finished the first album, we were like, we don't want to do that again. We want to do something different. And so obviously then musically it became like a city pop influence type of thing. But there's only so far you can take that before it starts becoming a novelty, right? So
Sure.
there's like the city pop element is there. But when we started exploring that, we also started finding other 80s and 90s influences that we liked and wanted to draw on. So Riki, for example, is a huge fan of like Toto and
Oh, nice. Yeah.
David Foster and those kind of 80s kind of stadium acts, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we wanted to kind of, well, what would that sound like if it was transposed into a kind of more contemporary heavy sound,
Sure.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
then it was like, okay, well, what if we did like a one of those, what would 90s early 90s trance sound like if it was kind of
Hmm.
transposed into and all these different experiments, and some of them landed and some of them didn't. um But what kind of emerged was this theme of like nostalgia
Okay.
and like what is what is that? What is nostalgia and why is it so prevalent now more than ever? Because like it really hit me when I was trying to write lyrics because when we wrote the first two EPs, you know, I think this genre of music, like heavy music and emo and stuff, especially, it tends to be very angsty, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
like, almost by definition, it kind of has to be. And
Yeah.
so, like, when we were writing that album, I was in a very angsty place in my life, and so those lyrics and those themes came out very naturally. It didn't feel like I was forcing it or being insincere. It felt like that's where we were, and that's where I was, and that's what the music that came out of it.
Sure.
And then when it came time to do this one, it's a few years later, and like I don't know, like I'm married now, and I'm kind of happy, I'm chill, So it's like, can I? Can you write happy emo music? Like what? Like what do I do? Do I just
Very
lie?
contradictory. Yeah.
It's like, should I just lie? Do I just? Is that what people do? I had this real existential crisis. Like what do I do, man? Like, because I didn't want to be insincere,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
but at the same time, like the type of genre that we work in, it's like, what else can you do? It has to sound like that. And so, I, what happened was, when I realized that we were working on nostalgia as a theme with the music, I was like, all right, what if that was also the theme of the lyrics then? And so like I started exploring that, and what I ended up at was like, this is gonna get a little bleak, but bear with me.
Sure. I
Um,
got you. I'm following.
so when I was a kid, like I remember like home PCs were like I'm outing myself as a fucking old man, but whatever.
Oh, I
Um,
so might. I could resonate.
like home PCs were kind of becoming a thing when I was a kid, right? And so like my dad had one, and there was like this huge culture around like PC stores and hard and software, and always all the games came in huge boxes,
Yeah.
and like it was a time, and so um, but every time I remember going in there and all the artwork and stuff for like bands and even and PC hardware and software, all the artwork and all the visuals was always like crazy futurist stuff. It was
Yeah.
like
It was like, check out
3D
this
models
big
of
game.
robots.
Then yeah, it's like this robot thing that's like
Yeah,
from the future, and he's gonna
yeah, yeah, yeah.
destroy this village. And I got you. Yeah. It was
It
over.
was
It was more. It was bigger than life. I got you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And like even like not even games, but like even like stupid simple stuff like virus software had like
Yeah.
alien robots and shit on the cover, right? So like it all felt very much like this is the future and we're looking
Sure.
towards the future. And there's a brand that I really love in Japan right now, a clothing brand called Akiba Kanden Denki, and they are what I would call like retro futurism, right? It's like
Okay.
reaching back into manga and games from the past and kind of vaporwaving it and bringing it into the future, and
Ah.
creating this recontextualizing it to make it new. And I love it. I'm all about it. I have so much stuff from them. I adore them so much. But like it got me thinking. I'm like, all the designers and all the people running that brand are all like in their early 20s or younger. And I'm like, what does that stuff mean to them? Like when I see Sega Saturn games and like PS2 era stuff, that's nostalgic for me, right? Because I lived
Sure.
through that.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I feel that. Yeah.
But I'm like, what do they get from it? Because
Sure. Yeah.
right,
It
it's
wasn't
not
in their
nostalgic.
time. Yeah.
It wasn't in their times. They don't have a nostalgic thing for it. So what is it to them? And like obviously who knows, right? But my theory that I kind of developed as I'm going through it is like, damn man, it seems like today's young people are like reaching back constantly because they can't imagine a future.
Wow.
Like
Yeah. Holy shit. Yeah.
it seems like the world is constantly getting heavier and harder and just like there's so much going on all the time. And I think what's going on is that the young people around me today are kind of just so tired from dealing with the present that they don't even want
Sure.
to try and think about what's next. They just want to go back. And ironically, what they're actually doing though, in going back and pulling stuff out, is that they're kind of creating a future, um,
Sure. Yeah.
which is amazing. Like this isn't a criticism of the youth at all. I'm not criticizing them at all.
Neither
I
am I.
think
Yeah.
I think
I
it's
don't want
dope.
Gen
Like,
Z coming after me.
no, no, no. I love what they're doing, man. I think it's incredible, and maybe their observation that like, oh well, the future looks like it's going to suck, so let's just look backwards, maybe that's quite astute, maybe they're right, you know. But anyway, that became kind of the theme of the lyrics that I was exploring. Like, okay, well, if you don't think you have a future, then what else can you do but look back, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And there's a band that I really love who are no longer active, sadly. They're from Dublin, Ireland, from my hometown. They were called Only Rivals, and they were kind of a alternative kind of pop punk thing. And they had a song. I can't remember the name of the song now, but one of the lines really stuck out to me. It was, "I found comfort in the sewage of my youth,"
Mm,
and that line always stayed with me because it's like looking back to your past and to your childhood and getting lost in that stuff is comfortable, right? It's very
sure.
comfortable,
Yeah.
but it's also sewage. Like it
Yeah.
can't sit in it. You have to eventually get out and move forward. It will corrupt you if you stay in it too long. And so that kind of became the theme of the lyrics, and that became the filter through which we looked at what influences from the past that we were lifting from. So it wasn't just like instead of it being like, oh, let's make a 90s trance gent song. Instead of that, it became like, if we were to reach back and pull that influence, what does it say about it now in
Modern
2020?
times. Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
like how can we recontextualize it in the same way that these Akiba Kande and Denki kids are recontextualizing old video game imagery? Like
Sure.
what can we do instead of just using it and putting it there and going, hey, look at the, you know this, right?
Hey, you like this, right? This is cool, right?
Right. Instead of that, just what could we do to kind of make it a little bit new?
Sure. Yeah.
And so that's the theme of the album, and that's the theme of the lyrics and where we're going generally. So with True Romantic, as an example, the the influence was straight up city pop. It was like Maria Takeuchi and Miki Matsubara and all these huge city pop icons. How can we channel that into what's going on now? And so it started with the music, which has those city pop horns and stuff in the background and
Yeah.
all the
Yeah. Yeah.
synths. And then there was also some city kind of very very city pop ish rhythmic motifs going on there. And then I don't know if you want to talk about this separately,
Yeah.
so maybe I'll
No,
give you
go
a chance
ahead.
to think.
Let's go. Let's go. We'll full in. You know,
The video.
the
Um,
video.
yeah. So we weren't really sure what to do here, but Riki is like a digital artist,
Yeah. Shout
and
outs.
up
He did a
until
great
now,
job.
well, yeah, man. I mean,
Kudos.
I'll
Kudos,
talk about
Ricky.
it now, but like he's a digital artist, and he has been doing that as a hobby like for his whole life, pretty much.
Sure.
Um, and then he showed me some stuff that he'd been doing. We released a remix EP a few years ago of like a bunch of different arrangements of our songs, and the cover art for that, Ricky did that, and he showed
Oh.
it to me. And I was like, "Yeah, that's cute. Who did that?" And he's like, "Oh, I did it." I'm like, "Oh, no way, that's pretty cool." So then, when we were like relaunching, I said to him, why don't we just would like how do you feel about just taking care of all the artwork, like not doing everything like by yourself? Obviously we can commission other people and stuff, but like as an art director, like for
Yeah.
the
How
whole
would you?
project.
Yeah. How would you feel fronting this part? Yeah, of the band
Because I think that sometimes if everybody's involved in everything, it can really get to like a too many cooks
in
spoil
the
the broth
kitchen.
situation.
Yeah.
So like I was like, look, how would you feel about that? And he was all for that. He's like, yeah, I'd love to do that actually. So we we were working on the music, and then while we were working on the music, he came to us and he was like, "All right, I think we should do a lyric video for True Romantic, and this is kind of my image. I
Hmm.
want to put it on TV, and I want to film the TV." And I thought that's quite cool. Okay, let's do that. So then he worked on it by himself and didn't really come to us about it at all. Um, but obviously, we all had an awareness of that nostalgia theme that we were
Sure.
working
Sure.
from.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then he came to us with like the first half of the video and sent it to us in the group chat, and we are just like, you made this, what the hell, man? By yourself? Like, because it was just so much more than any of us expected, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And then he worked on it all the way up until like it came out. We released it on July 12th, and the final edit was finished on July 10th. so it was like right on.
I know that feeling. So, oh, kudos, kudos. Oh my god.
Yeah,
Woo.
he's been working on it nonstop, man. So I have to give him all the respect in the world
Yeah, big
because it's
kudos.
all him. It's all him. The next video we're working with the director.
Okay.
Actually, the reason that that teaser is there is because we filmed the true romantic scene with the TV during the shoot of the next video. Yeah,
Wow. What a mind bend. I like that.
it was kind of messed up. Yeah, so we had this single and we're gonna shoot a video for the single, and then we decided, hey, you know what? Let's kill two birds with one stone here, and we'll film the lyric video while we're here, right?
Sure, yeah.
Um, that's what we did. And yeah, so it's cool. The next one's a very different vibe though. So
I'm all about it. I'll be doing a video for it, so then I'll get my true thoughts out, you know? I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
kidding.
Cool. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it.
I think that was and also I got to again big shout out to Riki because he did a really awesome job, and I think that I can say that because I have edited so many videos in my lifetime now at this point that I can say it takes a lot of time and it takes an army, and for him to
Yep.
do a lot of that stuff like the comping, like all of the edits in the actual video itself, I gotta give him a lot of credit for that because I truly know what it's like to edit videos like that. I've done it myself as well, so I know the struggle. So
Mm,
certainly crushed it on that. And I love that beginning intro. That was, I think, that was kind of my like first indication that it was like very nostalgic. Like there was something about it with like the way that the audio felt very like warm and distorted in
mm,
like a lo-fi ish kind of way,
mm.
and then as like the music video started to kick off, it started off as like kind of like one of those like old school like VHS tapes, like, and I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I feel like they're trying to do like some sort of nostalgia thing, but I didn't point it out in my video. I was like rewatching it now before we hopped on, and I was like, this has a very like nostalgic feel to it that
Mm.
I feel like maybe might be important for, you know, future songs to release and come out, you know, just to, I feel like they put a little Easter egg in there.
You're on the money, man. You're on the money.
And I think to me it was like the combination of that, and then I love your perspective on like just trying to have like this retro future sort of like viewpoint on it. And I think that you know, pull from the earlier point you made about like trying to be like emo and angst and stuff like that, I find that artists that are still doing it like aren't writing about sad shit. You know, like I feel like they've all like I feel like a lot of especially the older groups that are like were considered emo are just like writing about shit that they like that like either other people have experienced or like they're like my dog's sick, I love this dog, you know, or this cat's sick, I love this cat, you know. Like I think it's like that kind of thing where I almost feel like maybe there is a little bit of a shift in emo music where it's like there's certainly like younger bands that are doing it now that are like very angsty and very like in the moment. Like the only band that I can think two bands I can think of off the top of my head is Arm's Length is a very like cool emo band that's coming up right now, and
Mhm.
Hot Mulligan I would say is another like band that again has that sort of like emo, like very like angsty sort of sound that I'm like, okay, I get what you're going for, and like I can imagine that a lot of people love them for that reason, myself included. But I also feel like a lot of the older bands that are in emo are just like we don't do we're not as emo as, I mean, we're still emo, but we're not as
Yeah.
emo, you know? Like a
Well, I think
Silverstein is not writing like the like sad shit. They're like, we've been doing that for like well over like close to 2 decades now. Like how sad can we really need to go see therapy at this point, you
no,
know?
exactly.
Like
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like it's a balancing act, I think, right? Because on the one hand, like I think it's very difficult. I feel a huge amount of like sympathy is the wrong word because sympathy is quite means I'm looking at them negatively, which I'm not. But I feel like I feel it's much harder for younger bands pulling from that influence now
Sure.
because in the sense that it's been done now, you know,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like so when we were growing up with like Taking Back Sunday and you know, and Brand New and the initial kind of emo wave, like that kind of sound had never been really done before in that way.
Sure,
And there
yeah,
was a
I would
bunch of
agree.
different offshoots from it, you know, and then you have like it bled into hardcore and you got screamo and like it, it was new, it was interesting, and the fact that it was so openly raw and emotional, I know it ultimately led to it becoming like a meme and kind of laughed at, like, oh, you're so
Sure.
emo, bro,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, thanks,
But
man.
like
I wanna cry
in
right
the
now, you
moment,
know?
yeah, but like in the moment, like before that happened, it was a genuine thing of like, oh my god, this music is very raw, like,
Sure,
and
yeah.
it was kind of new, and I think now for artists now who are pulling from that, they have a double challenge in that the first thing that they're gonna have to deal with is that you're gonna have a bunch of elder emos looking at you like, oh, you're just copying shit now, like they're not gonna give you the respect that maybe they would have given you when they were younger,
Sure,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
and then on top of that, you have to contend with the fact that this whole genre has basically become memed to oblivion,
Sure,
just
yeah.
so like it's very difficult, I think, for younger bands to come in and use these influences in a way that works. And I think that's why the older bands, like you said, have mostly kind of stopped channeling that kind of angst and emotional stuff now.
Mhm.
And you kind of have to, right? Because like as
Yeah.
you get older, like when you're a teenager speaking to other teenagers, that's cool. But when you're in your 30s or whatever, if you're still targeting teenagers talking like a teenager, I don't know that that's cool anymore. Like,
I
and
would agree, yeah.
like there might be some people who can pull it off. Like, I'm not going to write it off entirely. Like,
Sure,
there might
yeah.
be some people who can do that and do it really well. But I think that what we've seen ultimately though is like lyrically, which is really interesting to me because I know a lot of people don't really fucking care very much about lyrics, but I really do. And so
Yeah.
lyrically, to me, like what I've noticed is like uh huge variance, like more so than ever before. Like when I was growing up, all those bands were singing about the same stuff.
Yeah, you're
You
like,
know,
you left your hometown,
yeah,
you hate your girlfriend, you hate your family, like,
right, right,
you can put, like, you can get, like, a wheel with just, like, all of the things
yeah,
that you could technically write about and just spin the wheel, and then whatever you
right,
land on, you write that song about your ex-girlfriend that you hate, or, like, your parents are not cool, or,
yeah,
like, you hate religion, or
yeah.
whatever. Like, there's a whole wheel of, like, like, titles that you could possibly throw in, and everybody's gonna eat that shit up. That's just
Exactly.
like that was just commonplace. I agree with you though.
That's how it was, that's how it was. And so, but now what I'm noticing is like a lot of even the legacy artists who have continued, like it's just so much more interesting now because you have like Bring Me the Horizon are doing this, this concept album thing about this, the next gen cult, this like storyline
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
mapping out. And like that's not new necessarily. I mean, Coheed and Cambria have been doing concept albums
I
for
was gonna
years,
say, yeah.
but like, but it's interesting because Coheed and Cambria presented themselves as that, right? That was from the very
Sure, sure,
beginning.
sure, sure.
They
Yeah.
were. But Bring Me the Horizon weren't that before, and now they really, really are. And so like that's cool. And then also on the other hand, then you have like Bad Omens who are like, you know, writing lyrics. I know they said like Just Pretend was written on purpose to get radio play, but like outside of Just Pretend, even Just Pretend I love, but
I
like
was gonna
one of
say,
our
yeah, it's a great song. Yeah.
but like that album, The Death of Peace of Mind, like there's so much going on lyrically there. Like it's very deep and kind of introspective in some ways, and then there's it kind of lulls you into believing that it's like this kind of very serious, emotionally introspective album, and then drops what's that song called? I Want the Money,
I want the
the
money. Yeah, I think that's it. You're right.
which is like so good specifically because it pivots and is like, hey, listen, I'm not going to pretend I don't want this cash, like because it's I love it. I love that because like once you were talking about pop music earlier, right? And about how
Yeah,
pop music, used to be kind of very shallow and whatever. And for me, this is my opinion, but like I really believe that the difference between good and bad music has nothing to do with genre. For me, the difference in good and bad music has everything to do with sincerity.
I would
That
agree.
like
Yeah.
if you're approaching something sincerely, it will be good. And that could mean anything. Like if you sit down with a pen and paper and you go, I'm going to write a song and I don't care about anything else except making people dance. That's what I want.
Sure.
I sincerely want to make people dance in the club, right? Then it's going to be a good club song
Sure, yeah.
because you're coming at it from a point of sincerity and you're doing what you set out to do meaningfully. And I think that's the difference. And so that Bad Omens track, I think 10 or 15 years ago, like people would have looked at that as shallow.
Oh,
Like,
big facts, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, you're writing
I
about how
can't
you want
believe it. Yeah.
like that sucks, man. Where's that why are you doing that? But now, I don't know. For me, it's like it's just so straightforward and honest about where he's at musically. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna pretend that I want the money. Like and it just hits. It's like, yeah, perfect, love it. Because it's not fake. It's clearly real. And
Yeah.
so it works. It works. And that's where I think a lot of the emo artists who are new now, I feel like that's where um they have their strength, but also maybe where it's difficult for them because they probably are approaching it from a point of sincerity. But now the challenge is this genre has been done so much that it's become a meme basically. Will other people acknowledge your sincerity? Will they
Sure,
take it,
yeah.
will they accept that you're being sincere or not? So I don't know. It's I think heavy music and like alternative music in general is in like I saw a tweet from who was it? Was that guy Finn something?
Oh, Finn
Uh,
McKenty.
yeah, he put out a tweet the other day saying something like oh heavy music is like in a bad place or something.
Oh, yeah, I think it was a comment to because I think I don't know if I saw this specific tweet, I'll pull it up, but, um, I know he was talking about, like, Invent Animate and how, like, they're like, "This is gonna be" like, obviously, he's saying this very facetiously, but he's saying, like, if Invent Animate's gonna be the next big band of the genre, right, like, then we're in trouble or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, don't
Yeah,
know
right.
exactly what he
Something
said.
like that, right?
But
Yeah.
I that stirred everybody. I think that and some part of me in my head is like, he can't fully believe that because I feel like he's just a pot stirrer and to some degree, you know?
Mm,
Because I'm just like, you can't like I feel like you instinctually say something like that because you want to piss someone off and
right.
obviously he got what he wanted, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that I think if you look at it from the scope of like artists and what they're able to create, I think it goes back to your point is being sincere. Like I think if you don't understand the sincerity behind the music, like I loved the newest In Van Anime record. I feel like that's not anybody's. I feel like most people would know that about me. But I think if you like showed someone on the street this, like they would be like, "What the fuck's this? I don't know what the fuck this is." You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah,
it would just be very confusing to them because A, maybe they don't listen to screaming music, and B, they're not listening to like really dynamic screaming music.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it might not mean a lot to them. But I think if you give them the context behind the album and like some of these songs, like you said, like have such this have such a deep lyricism attached to them. You know, I feel like that album is very, very like interpersonal. Like there's
Mm,
something about it that like while I was listening to it, I really enjoyed the musicality of it. But as I've kind of listened to it since it's been out, I've really delved more into the lyricism of the album, and I'm like, wow, there is
mm,
so much like depth and like pain and emotion and like things that like you wouldn't think about because you're like, oh, okay, he's screaming it, but like now you can feel like the reasons why he's screaming about it, and then it
mm.
also kind of has that double fold meaning where it's like, okay, he's screaming about it. That's like there's a lot of emotion packed into
Yeah,
these lyricism. So I think it
yeah.
makes I would hope that it makes more of an impact on people because it's like, oh shit, like this is
Mm,
like, you know, like, that's crazy. So I think for me, it's like, I agree that I would say a lot of artists, if they come at it from a level of sincerity, which I'd imagine most artists do,
mm, mm,
you know, I think the music is going to be inherently good. Like,
mm.
I never want to out. count out a band because they're like, "Oh, well, I don't feel like this is for me." Like I can actively say like if a country artist released a song, it's probably not going to be for me. I'm just not a country
Right.
fan, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm not actively seeking out country, so I feel like
Sure.
that's just kind of my that's just how it goes, you know.
Yeah.
And I highly implore anybody to send me a country song because, you know, I'll actually check it out and be like, I like this or I didn't like it, whatever, and be
Yeah.
objective about it. But yeah, I think that's kind of like my piece to what you were saying about sincerity is like, you know, like if the country artist that I don't like comes from a place of sincerity and is singing about something that they're sincere about, and you can
Mm,
feel it in like the emotion of how they're singing it or the lyricism that they write within the music, then it's like, okay, maybe I don't like it because it's not my type of music, but I
mm.
can't say that it's not sincere because I think
Yeah.
it's still reaching an audience. It's still reaching a bunch of people that like will get that tattooed onto their arm or like some
Right.
shit
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
it's like where it's meaningful, right? So
Mm.
you know, I don't really count out genres, but I agree with you in the fact that I think you have to have that level of sincerity. And to kind of follow up with a point you made earlier, Andy, do you feel like the reason why that music maybe takes a little bit longer for you guys to come out is maybe because you feel like you're being insincere to yourself or to like your group as a band and being like, man, we really have to have music that's sincere, right? We have to make an
Mm.
impact on either the people in the Japanese scene that we see locally or like
Mm.
internationally in terms of the you know the people that listen to our stuff, because I imagine it's not just solely in Japan where you have people that listen to your music. So do you feel like
Yeah.
the reasons why you maybe have taken a little bit longer is because you're like, do I want this to I don't want people to have a jaded opinion about the music that I write or the music that we put out as a band.
Yeah, I think that's yeah, you're on the ball. That's pretty
Okay.
much what like I've never actually kind of like thought about it in those explicit terms before, but now that you framed it that way, that is pretty much how it goes. Like it's less like a conscious decision of like, oh, I don't want people to think we're insincere, and it's more like I can't speak for the other members, but like for
Sure,
me,
sure, sure.
I find it very very difficult to sit down and force myself to write something.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah, I
like
would imagine
there are
so.
there are some songwriters who can do that, right? And it's incredible to watch. They'll just sit down and they'll something will come out. And like for me, I mean, like if I sit down at the piano and spend an hour playing with something, I guess something will come out. But like I prefer to wait until the idea comes to me kind of formed
Or
already.
naturally, it comes to you
Yeah, more,
naturally. Yeah.
yeah. It's not that I think that's better. It's not like a judgment call.
Hmm.
It's just that seems to produce better results for me than when I sit down and try to force something out. And so like it's less like a conscious decision, like I said, oh, we don't want to be insincere, and more like I don't want to say an inability to be insincere, because obviously that's not true. I could lie if I wanted to, but like, but like it's I don't enjoy that, like personally, like in terms of like the act of creation, I don't
Sure.
enjoy creating something that's dishonest or that I don't feel like I'm being sincere with. And for me, it's like if I'm not enjoying it, what's the point?
Sure. Yeah. 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 And you
Unless
could
someone else is
tell, and I
yeah.
feel like you could tell too, like if someone is insincere, right? Like there's just something about it where you're like, do you really feel like it's kind of like, and I don't mean to dunk on Blink 182 because like I don't
Mhm.
I'm they're an OG, but like you can't tell me that like Mark Hoppus and like Tom DeLonge and Travis Barker are okay with just like talking about like the shit that they talked about like in their like late teens, like early 20s. Like they wrote about like the dumbest shit you can think about, you know, right?
Yep.
And they have to sing all that stuff with sincerity still, you know? Like I'm not saying that they don't because I think it's partially like a humoristic aspect of things. Like they have to know it's like meme worthy, right? Like
Right.
I look at Mark Hoppus, I'm just like, you can't tell me you're singing a song about a girlfriend that broke up with you. I mean, like you're probably married, you have kids, like you're you know, financially probably well off, you know, like you like
Well,
the
actually,
connection to that song might be different, you know?
I think you just touched on something kind of interesting though, because I'd never actually thought about it like this until right now. But like maybe, perhaps, maybe there is like a sincerity in performing that for an audience that wants to hear it, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah, okay.
maybe you could go like, okay, well, I don't feel that way anymore, but I'm clearly bringing these people a lot of joy by revisiting that part of my life. So that's now the new reason I'm doing it. It's not to talk about the story
Okay.
of my life.
Yeah.
It's to bring happiness to these people, right? Like I honestly never thought about it like that until right this second talking to you. Like, but like
I'm glad
maybe
I could
that's
unlock that for you.
like that's cool, right? Like if you think about it that way, like almost like that in itself could be a way to take something from the past and reframe it,
Sure, yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know, for the
And
modern
then
day, like, you know?
And and then to kind of follow up with what you were saying about nostalgia, it's giving those people that are attending the show nostalgia because then they're
Right.
like, "Oh my god, I remember when I heard 'Damn It' for the first time," or "I
Yeah.
remember when I heard 'Dump Weed' for the first time." You know,
Yeah.
like those, like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
those are moments when you're like, "Oh man, I'm an angsty teenager. I remember when this song came out," you know? And so I think it's like yeah, I think it's kind of reframing nostalgia, right? I think it's
Mm,
like, you know, like obviously both of us are video game lovers, so it's like I obviously have a lot of nostalgia for like older Nintendo games because I
sure.
grew up playing them, you know, like
Mm,
I love I still buy video games, you know, I still play a
yeah.
lot of video games, you know, and I think that like you know, there's that nostalgia of like, oh, I remember when I was a kid and I was playing Zelda, and then now I'm adult and I am still playing Zelda. You know, like
Yeah.
that nothing has changed. You know, and I'm probably going to be a parent and still play Zelda, and I will teach my kids to play Zelda, and then
Yep.
you know, the nostalgia kind of reintroduces itself because now my kids are experiencing that for the first time, and it's like, wow, that's crazy. I remember when I did this water temple and I wanted to kill myself, you know, like, you know, like that's people get that was, I don't want to, you know, I want to say, I want to say that that was not a good thing. Don't do that. But, I won't say I actually
Water
went
temple was water temples are always a
water
weird one.
temples are suck. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. They never learned their lesson on that, but I think it's like that where it's like, oh man, like that's kind of a nostalgia thing where you're like, wow, that's kind of crazy. But I think it kind of goes back to your point about like finding that nostalgia in writing music. You know, I think there's something to be had about people who pull from the past because like and I think that that's great you're in a better spot like it's kind of similarly to like how I view a lot of like Beartooth stuff because like I can't imagine
Mm,
Caleb's not writing about like sad shit anymore like the first if you think about the first Beartooth EP like that shit's sad as fuck you know like and he's not dealing with alcoholism and like now he's writing like happy stuff but still heavy stuff like kind of harken it back to like the newest song that they released, which is Sunshine, where that's like more of a happier song. And you can just tell he's like in a way better like mental space. And he's just like, I'm just enjoying my time as being like Beartooth's singer, you know, like I'm going out,
yeah.
enjoying my life, doing my thing. And I think that's kind of like a similar parallel that I can draw with you is that like you're like, I'm married, like I'm doing my shit. I love my band. Like we're putting out new music. Like everything's cool. I can't
Yeah.
write about sad. Like my brain doesn't have room to write about sad shit anymore. You know, like I
Yeah,
feel
exactly.
that.
Well, yeah. Not right now anyway, right? I mean, like, who knows? Like, obviously things can always go bad, but like for now, we're writing
Don't
new
say
music.
that, Andy.
But whatever.
I'm
Like,
gonna put the positive juju out there for you. Things not to bet.
we'll
I'm not
choose to
saying
be
there
positive.
won't be that time, but I'm just saying I'm gonna give you the positive juju to keep things good.
Appreciate it. I appreciate it. No, yeah, it's fun, man. It's fun. And like I think that, you know, there it's obviously it's good to think about bands as a business to an extent, which is kind of what we have started to do
Hmm.
recently in terms of like, getting everything lined up properly and planning everything out, which is something that we should have been doing before, but we didn't. So uh, and so like that's cool too. But at the same time, like I don't know, like maybe it's hard for me to make like I don't want to talk I don't want people to think I'm making judgment statements, you know, like saying, "Oh,
Sure,
well,
sure, sure.
a band needs to be this way or a band needs to be that way." I'm not. Like I'm just talking to you like as me in this body, living the life that I'm living, right? I don't know about anybody else. I can't talk
It's
about
in a
anybody else.
vacuum. I tell people this is in a vacuum, you know, like, you can't just assume that, like, because I talk about stuff all the time here on the channel, you know, if people took me for face value, then, like, they probably
Yeah,
wouldn't be
who
liking my
is that?
channel. You know, I would be screwed. Like, I would have been done. The channel would have been long gone like years ago. You know, if I took people took me
Yeah.
for face value.
So like as much as I think there's obviously worth like in thinking of it like a business, like obviously
Sure,
there
yeah,
is. And maybe my view would be different if it was my full-time job because
yeah,
it isn't right now, right? So maybe my view would be different if it was. But like I really think that like it's I still feel like I to an extent like I did when I was young and that the band is something I'm doing because I enjoy doing it.
sure, yeah,
And it that aspect of it for me is kind of non-negotiable. And like I don't want to scare any of the other members by saying this out loud, but this is how I feel. Like if it ever gets to a point where I don't enjoy it, I probably won't continue anymore. Like just because that's the whole point to me. It's like it has to
sure,
be enjoyable. It has to be fulfilling. I have to be able to get that feeling from it. And um there was a short period like right after we dropped the album before we figured out this new direction with Hansel, there was a short period where I really felt like the enjoyment was kind of melting away. Like
sure, sure, sure.
it was just kind of okay, we did it. Now what? And what do we do? And then
Yeah,
as soon as we started working with Hansel and getting the demos back from him, like the mixes and the ideas he was putting in, it came back, you know, and we got excited again. And so yeah, yeah, that excitement I think is absolutely necessary. And like you said, like it colors what you create, you know, like because we're in a good place now. And me specifically, but also the other members too, like we're all in a pretty good place right now. And so like we're happy to be playing music and we want that happiness to be reflected
sure,
in
yeah,
the music that we play, you know. And so the you know the concern obviously was, well, it's heavy music, can it be happy, is it possible for that to be the case? But I think it is now, you know. I think like there's enough there's enough variance in the kind of heavy scene now that I don't really feel like I don't really feel like anybody is playing to a rule book anymore.
I would agree. Yeah,
You know? I think that for a lot of new acts, there's like younger acts maybe are kind of coming in and like when I was a kid, like obviously when you're starting out, what you want to do is copy what other people are doing, right? But
sure,
like
yeah,
now I think that's probably harder than ever because everybody is doing everything.
yeah, yeah.
You know? So,
You
like
take the
when you
most
go,
sleep, like most recent Sleep Token album that jumps all
right,
over the place. Yeah.
right. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Like, okay, so like perfect example, right? Because like when I was my first band ever, we were like Weezer cover band, right? And so
Wow.
I was like, that was really easy because like as much as I love Weezer, and I do, at that time they had only released Pinkerton Blue and Green, right?
Oh, okay. So yeah, the
And
early
so, like
years.
the early years, and like as much as I love those albums, and I do, that's all the same stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
You know?
to a degree. Yeah, I would agree.
So
Yeah.
when you go like, oh, we want to be a Weezer cover band, there's no, that's not a confusing statement.
Yeah.
Immediately, I know what you're doing, you know. But like now in 2023, if someone goes, "Oh yeah, I want to play music like Bring Me the Horizon," I'm like,
Which
"Which
era?
Bring Me the Horizon are you talking about?" You
Yeah,
know?
which are we talking like you know, Chelsea Smiles era? Are we talking about this is, you know, it ends, you know,
Yeah,
we're talking like Sempiternal, we talking like new shit, like what
right. But like,
which era are you picking? Yeah.
even within each era, like Ammo, like even on Ammo, which song?
Which
Like, what do
song?
you mean? You know,
Yeah.
like because and that's what I mean. I think that everyone's doing everything now, and so if you're an independent artist or you know a new artist and you're trying to you know get going, really think the worst thing you could do is like try and follow a rule set. You
I would
know,
agree. Yeah.
which is ironic because back when I was starting out, that was the best thing you could do.
Yeah.
It was, you know, pick the right boxes for the right genre, and the right people will find it. And
Correct.
but like now, that's not the case anymore. Now it's just like everything, everywhere, all at once, and you have to like you. The best thing I know it's intimidating, but I really think that it's actually equally liberating. Like if you kind of go, I don't know where to start. There's too many options. I don't know where to begin. It's like, okay, cool, I got it. Pick a thread and start pulling it.
Yeah, or like it's like check all the boxes. Yeah, it's like go through the list, just click yes, 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 yes,
Yeah,
yes, 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 and just keep going until you run out of boxes to click. You know, that's like I think there's like I said, I think a lot of bands not and I hope I didn't cut you off, Andy, but like
no, go ahead.
I think that especially I would say God, I'm trying to think of what artist really kind of carved that out. I would definitely say Bring Me the Horizon is one of those bands that I think, and I've said it multiple times so people can corroborate me saying this, but like I feel like they're the band that has always been one of those trendsetter bands. Like
Yeah, for
they
sure.
will release an album, people will be like, I hate this, I don't like it. Bring Me the Horizon changed, and then like 3 years later they'd be like, oh shit, that was a great album. Why did like I don't know why I hated this album, and it's like bro, it's like you could have loved this album when it came out. Like I
Yeah,
know
yeah,
people didn't really like Amo that much, but I go back and listen to Amo all the time, and I'm like, damn, this is a good record. Like you know what I
yeah.
mean?
No,
Like
no,
super
big fan of Ram.
melodic, super moody, but also like heavy, and like
Yeah.
they really mastered that kind of like almost like stadium rock, like emo, like arena rock kind of
Mm,
feel, but bringing like heavy, like metal and like emo and stuff into the mix. Um,
yeah.
and then I'd also say like I think Issues was another band that I felt like definitely set the boundaries for like or push the boundaries in terms of what you're able to do and how far out you're supposed to go, or like
Yeah,
not even
for
how
sure.
far you're supposed to go, just how far can you go out and for people to be like, holy shit, like they're really out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, exactly. Like how far can you go before people want you to pull back, right?
yeah, exactly.
Even then, like maybe you shouldn't pull back, but like knowing you can't know where the line is until you go over it.
Correct,
You know?
correct. And
So like,
it's also like a lot of hyper pop. Like I feel like that's kind of the untapped genre right now is like
yeah,
bands get artists and bands just go. There's no limit. Like they're just like, oh okay, how far out? Keep going.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Keep
yeah. Just
no,
go
no,
no
no,
further.
no, you're not no, you keep going.
Go long, go
No, keep
long.
going. Yeah, keep going. No, just I'll tell you when to stop. Just keep going. You know, like that's what I feel like the genre is, right? Like, and I think that when you look at it from that frame, like there's so much more possibilities that come to light, right? I think that
Yeah,
that's like the biggest thing that I think I've taken away from like Banner's cross pollinating genres is just like just stop saying that there is a barrier, right? Just
right.
fucking do it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, it's about as easy as, I mean, it's easy to say that stuff, right? But I think in practice, it's like, like you could look back and say like those albums are great because they pushed the boundaries, like they may
mm,
not have been great at the time and people may or may not have loved those albums, but
mm,
now if you look back at it you're like holy shit, like if these albums didn't exist then we may not have been into the next, because like you
yeah,
think that the fans can kind of alter that sort of future, right? Like where if Bring Me the Horizon fans, like if they believe Bring Me the Horizon fans and everybody hated Amo, right? Like would they continue going in that pop direction if they
sure.
received a lot of flack about it, like I think they
Yeah,
have enough knowledge to know like we should take some of this into consideration, but also at the same time like we still need to have our own artistic integrity, right? Like we have to be
yeah,
able to be
yeah,
like, okay, like the fans may not like this, and that's fine. We can have fans not like it, but we can't have a large majority of the fans not like it, or we won't be a band anymore. So
well,
we have to
that's
try to
true
figure
too.
out,
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah,
you know,
I mean, like to I always go back to this one quote from like this author that I love, a British author called Philip Pullman, and he has this quote where he said like he was asked in an interview once like, um, why do you think your books are so popular or whatever? Because he was pretty popular in the UK,
sure, sure,
and he said, "I've no idea." And he said, "And any creator who pretends to know why they're popular is lying. Like nobody knows. It's a mystery to everybody." And the quote that he went said was like, "How many people?" Before the first Harry Potter book came out, how many people did you hear talking about how they wanted to read about Harry Potter? Like, we
sure,
want to
yeah,
read about going to magic school in the UK. Like, nobody. And the reason is the audience doesn't know what they want until they see what you have to offer, right? So like we don't know. Like I didn't know that I wanted to watch Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones came out, and then it did, and I wow, this looks cool. I'll watch it. So like the idea that I bristle against the idea that artists should cater what they're doing to fans, right? I
Sure.
know that's not what you said. So like that idea I really don't like, and I think there is a lot of fans who feel that way, like, oh, what are they doing? They're betraying their fan base and stuff, and
Sure. Yeah.
it's like, you're not
Yeah.
entitled to art. Like,
Yeah,
it's not,
it's not your personal stake on that. Yeah, I got what you mean, yeah.
you're not entitled to it. Like,
Yeah.
all art is a gift. It's presented to you as a gift, and you can take it or not. You don't have to like it. You can even criticize it. You can be openly critical of it and say why you don't like it. But the idea that like art that you don't like is some kind of betrayal is just so childish. Like, just no, that's just not the case at all.
Sure, I would
And
agree.
like for Bring Me the Horizon, like I think they are probably the best example of like a band that is openly, like explicitly kind of testing what the audience is willing to accept from them.
Yeah, I
Like
would agree, yeah.
not even like you could frame that as in like, oh, they're being tentative, kind of putting their feet in the water and seeing how it goes. But I don't think that's what's happening. I think they're openly like challenging their audience.
I would agree,
Like,
yeah, oh, yeah.
hey,
They're like,
this is
"We
what we
dare
want
you
to
to
do.
hate this." Yeah,
We dare
we're
you
like
to hate.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Like try and hate this. Go ahead. Show us how much you can dislike this. And I personally, I love that.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Like even when the music itself doesn't quite land with me, I'm so happy to be part of the experiment. Like I love it. Um, like what was it on? I really loved That's the Spirit. I think that's
Yes.
probably my favorite album of theirs. But like Ammo, I also really liked. But there were some tracks on Ammo I didn't really like. Like I didn't really like the Grimes track, Nihilist Blues.
Okay,
Um,
that's fair.
I don't know why. It just didn't really click with me.
It was a little
Um,
bit more, like, EDM-ish, though, I
Yeah,
feel like,
but
you
at
know.
the same time though, like I I don't like the song, but I love the fact that it exists.
Agreed, yeah.
Like it's just it's such a brilliant kind of example of artists following what their creative energy is kind of telling them to do,
Sure, sure, sure.
in spite of everything else. Like
Yeah.
based on what they had done before and what their fan base expected, that song should not exist, but it does, and that is like the biggest kind of testament to like the power of creativity and how if you have this idea, sometimes it just has to come out of you, even if 9 out of 10 people would tell you to keep it in a box and don't let it out.
Yeah.
You can't. It has to come out. So yeah, I love that. Big
No,
fan
and
of that.
I think for me, like, to follow up on your point was, like, I think that's kind of, like, the real, like, I think that's kind of the angsty quality, right? Like, I think that
Oh yeah.
being an older band, I think it's, like, that's their angsty quality is, like, "I dare you say this is a bad song." Like, I really want you to tell me it's a bad song. Like, please tell me to
Good
listen to it and tell me it's a bad song, right? Because like
way.
that is like the biggest like fuck you to all of the people that listen to it. Like cuz you figure like Lost. I'll give an example for I mean we could talk about this all day. But like I feel like with Lost like I didn't get it at first. I was like,
Mm,
this seems weird. Like, why would they have this real like hyper poppy like verse and then have this real kind of like my chemish sort of like chorus and then
yeah,
have this like insane like breakdown slash like EDM blast show kind of going on in the breakdown. And I
yeah.
was like, I don't like in my head, I finished listening to it and I was like, I don't get it. Like I did a reaction video for it. Maybe I'll wind up throwing it up on the show on the channel. I actually still I have it uploaded. I just have to cut the audio out because shout outs to whoever their team is now. But I listened to it for the first time, and anytime I do reaction videos, the first time I listen to it. And I just walked out of it like what the hell did I just listen to? Like,
Right.
did they had like, I feel like Ollie and Jordan were like, okay, we really like hyperpop right now. Let's do the hyperpoppy sort of like punky sort of like indie like hyperpop sort of like verse, and then let's hit him with like a throwback like emo banger chorus, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That feels very reminiscent of like older like emo artists like the Used, My Chem, like that sort of styling. Let's throw it back again in the second verse, and then in the bridge, let's just like chop them at the knees, which with like the insane breakdown and like really just insane EDM blast hits. Like, let's
Yeah.
go nuts, right? And
Yeah.
I would love to be a fly on the wall in that writing session, because like I think I listen to it and I look at it from a perspective of like a fan, but also like a music critiquer. And I'm just
Mm.
like, holy shit, like to put all of those kind of thoughts into one song that is like 3 minutes long, right? Like to really hash all that sort of stuff out, and then for basically them to just be like, give us your worst. Tell us why this doesn't work, right? And
Yeah.
I will say, the first listen, I was like, I don't know if I'm about it, right? I genuinely admitted that I don't know if it was something that hit with me. Like the chorus, loved the verses, left to be, something to be desired, and then the breakdown. I love a good breakdown.
Yeah.
But then after I had finished doing that reaction, I went and listened to it more and more. And I was like, every time I listened to it, I got a little bit more,
Yeah.
And
Right.
then
Yeah.
and then I was like, I should listen to it again. And then I listened to it again. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then by like probably like the 10th listen, I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I got it. I know what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like, and so it was the initial reaction, and like the newest song that they released with Lil Uzi Vert and I think it
Mm.
was Dara Palumbo, which
Yeah.
insane collab, first of all, like two people from drastically different genres of music.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I think that to me was just like such a cool experience. And, I think for me, it's like they're always trying to push the envelope. And I think that that's kind of the biggest key that I can give to any band right now is just be be willing to be daring, right? Like you
Yeah.
only get to do this band thing maybe once, if you're lucky you get to do it for multiple projects, but that's not always guaranteed.
Mm.
Just to fucking do the things that you want to do. Like if the band collectively agrees that they want to kind of branch out and do different shit, like if you feel like you are open and receptive to doing it, just do it. Like I think that I think that we have now come to the age of of people not only gatekeeping less in terms of genre like crossover, but I'd also
Mm.
say like I argue a lot more people are receptive to bands doing different stuff. Like I think there's just a level of like acceptability that bands go through now where it's like,
Mm.
oh, I like this because this has pop elements, because this has metal influences in it, or like, oh, like this band has like metalcore influences, but also is like heavily into rap. Like that's
Mm.
cool. Though that crossover is interesting. And there's like obviously a whole smattering of other combinations, but like I just think it just makes that ability to do something else a little bit different. I think there's always going to be a band that is willing to just like do something different. As I mentioned earlier, Sleep Token. Like if you listen through the entire album, like they all have, I guess, kind of a similar tonality to it somewhat to a degree, but like they have like an acoustic like ballad song like smack dab in the middle of the album. They have like a
Yeah.
rap kind of like spoken word parts. Like
Mhm.
they have like a lot more like electronic. They have one part that has like a bunch of jazz shit in it. Like it's literally, this is the map.
Yeah.
Like it is everything,
Yeah.
and so I hope that that's the mindset that Clarity is going into going further. It seems like that is the case, and I think for me, I'm very excited to get into the next stages of Clarity. As always, I love Clarity. I feel like it goes without saying. I'm very excited. We did take a very long tangent out into the middle of the woods, so I'm gonna try to drag this back into the street a little bit. But Andy, I have to ask, I thought of something really interesting, and I've been noticing I'll peek on your Facebook profile every once in a while because I like to keep up. You're one of
Okay,
my you're one of my close friends, so I feel like I always keep an eye on that shit. But
right.
I noticed that recently you've been doing a lot of like solo like lo-fi sort of stuff. Like you have like your own project where you're doing music, and I know like you have done stuff for, if my memory serves me correct, you've done stuff for like video game soundtrack sort of things, if I'm on the nose
I've
somewhat,
done some kind of stuff like that. Yeah.
some stuff like that. I'm
Mm.
curious if any of that sort of like mental thought process is different from when you do stuff to with Clarity, because obviously Clarity is a group, and this is where you're doing more of the stuff solo. And
Right.
a twofold question is is any of that sort of influence from that sort of music that you're making, is it going to be showing up in like more future Clarity stuff, or are you going to keep those like two identities separated?
Separate. Yeah, so I do solo stuff, like instrumental kind of chill out stuff, as No Not Now is the name of the project. And it's been pretty successful, like in terms of like my projects in my life.
Sure, sure.
I don't know if it's successful by everyone's metric, but like it certainly has been successful for me.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, it's cool because like the difference with it is the biggest difference is so obvious, I guess, but like um with Clarity, everything has to go through the steps of each member, right? So
Sure,
like
yeah.
I'll have an idea, and then by the time the song is finished, maybe it's very different from what I originally imagined, but that's just what happens. Um with No Not Now, it's just me, and so like whatever I want to do, I can do, and that has benefits in that it's very freeing and very comfortable, but it's also got drawbacks in that like sometimes I'm wrong, and sometimes another outside influence would have stopped me from doing something that maybe I shouldn't have done, right? So it's touch and go, but like that stuff is that stuff has also been kind of on a journey, I suppose, because like when I started it, the lo-fi boom was like in full swing, right? Like the
Yeah, yeah,
lo-fi
yeah.
thing, and that has now kind of like I don't believe in trends anymore. That's like one thing I think I
I
should get
agree.
off.
Yeah.
I think the whole concept of trends coming and going is very outdated. I think what happens now is like something is put into the cultural consciousness and it stays there and it lingers. And so like everything is kind of built on top of everything else now. And so like the lo-fi thing isn't as popular as it was like a few years ago, but I don't think it's gone. I
I
think it's
agree.
just kind of repurposing, right? So like because I think one of the people might think I'm crazy here, but like do you know New Jeans?
I do.
Um
Yes, yes. I'm being
so
heavily getting into K-pop, so yes.
look, New Jeans are the most unique K-pop group in a long time because they are chill. They're chill. Like
Yes.
K-pop for so long has been about maximalist production and like crazy huge stadium bops that like drive you crazy, right? But like New Jeans are chill. Everything
It's
about
a
them is chill.
vibe.
They're both
Yeah.
they're chilled out. It's all vibes. And like, I mean, sorry guys, that's lo-fi. Shut the fuck up. So like the idea that like the idea that lo-fi is like gone, that the trend's done, it's like, no, it's not done. It's just being repurposed.
It's one of the
It's been
biggest K-pop groups right now, and it's like, yeah, it's actually
exactly like
lo-fi. Yeah.
it's not that it's lo-fi in terms of like low fidelity audio or anything, but like
No,
the
no,
the
no.
the the vibe.
The
It's that chilled
styling,
out
the
kind
styling.
of vibe.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like so I don't think it's gone. But in terms of your question, to like the end of True Romantic, I saw you reacting the video to it, like the shift to that kind of it's a very different ending, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and so originally we had a different idea for that. We knew that we wanted to end it there, and the reason we wanted to do that is because we felt like people wouldn't be expecting it, and
I didn't. Yeah, you're right.
yeah,
I'm not
we
speaking for
wanted
all people, but I didn't expect it personally. Yeah.
we wanted that. We wanted that because we felt like um, we knew it was going to be our first track to reveal this new version of us, and what we wanted to do was we wanted people to be left wanting a little bit more.
Oh, yeah.
And so we thought, okay, let's end it there and then let it hang. And just hopefully that will get people to listen to it again, maybe. And so uh, originally it was like this kind of chorus, kind of choir boom clap thing. And Hansel was the one who said, no, you shouldn't do that.
I agree.
Um, And we were like, okay, why not? And he was like, it's a bit,
It's overplayed.
2000, yeah, it's a bit 2012 Lumineers, Mumford and Sons, you know, like you shouldn't do that.
That's
So
fair. I agree with him on that one.
he was
Yeah.
right. He was right. So then it became okay. What do we do then? And so that's where the initially it was a very very lo-fi thing. We went, let's go lo-fi with it, and let's do that. And then it became kind of a mix of lo-fi, and the idea was like, if this song existed in the 80s Japanese city pop days, what would it have sounded like?
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and it probably would have sounded like this. So we put that in there, and so that's how that happened. So like, yes, to answer your question, like already, I think that the work I've been doing solo has kind of found its way into Clarity. But like more than the No Not Now stuff, if we're going to talk about like other projects I'm doing, I produce and write for a streamer called Kaho Shibuya. She's like a Twitch streamer cosplayer,
Oh,
and she's released some music, and I haven't written everything she's released, but like a few of them I've written and produced. And uh, that working with her, because her stuff is just blatant bubblegum J-pop,
yeah.
and like, and so working with her on her music has kind of reminded me, like we were talking about earlier, it reminded me that how important it is to be open and playful
Sure.
when you're
Yeah. Oh yeah.
being creative. Like, she came to me a little while ago, a few years, I think it was a year ago or so, and she came like, I want to make a song about food. I want to make a cute song about food. And I was like,
You're
I don't
like
know how
what?
to do that. Yeah, I don't know how to do that. I have no idea how to do that. And so, but we tried it, and initially I kind of really had to force myself to not take it so seriously, because I was like, I don't want to write a stupid little cute song about food. I'm a serious songwriter. I don't want to do that, you know. But then like that sucks,
I
right?
take my work seriously. Yeah.
Yeah, but that sucks. That sucks, man. Because like, here's this woman, and she wants to create this silly, cute little song. So who am I to stand over her and be like, no, you can't do that? Like, that's just so shitty. So I had to break that element of myself, and I had to go, no, look, this is what she wants to do. She wants it to be fun. So you have to find a way to have fun with this, because that's the only way it's going to come out good.
That's what a
And
true emo would say, so I
right, right.
expect you have to have fun. You can't be
But it
depressed,
worked.
Andy.
It worked though, right? Like, I mean, the song came out great. It's on her Spotify. It's called Moto in Japanese title, but it came out really fun. It's energetic. It's playful. It's very very cool. I like it a lot. I really enjoy listening to it even now. And that working on that stuff with her brought me back. When we came back to Clarity, I felt like I had that in my head. Like, okay, I don't want to take this too seriously. Like,
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
there, there obviously is a serious element to it, but I also want to make sure we keep that playfulness and we stay creative and we stay excited. Like, people often talk about creativity in terms of bravery, like, oh, it's so brave to kind of push the boundaries, and it's so brave to try new things. And that is true, but more than I don't want to think about it as like a brave thing that I'm doing in the face of some negative consequence. For me, it's like I want to think about it as play. I want to think about it
yeah,
as
yeah,
just this freeing kind of liberating space that we can just have fun and create in. And obviously then releasing it involves some bravery, I suppose, but like,
yeah.
I don't want to take it there from my perspective. I prefer to think about it as this playful experience that you have with your friends, like when you
Yeah.
were a kid and you played with your friends, and you didn't think about like what the play meant. You didn't think about like, oh, what are we going to do for their game tomorrow, or what are other people going to think about our game. You just had fun with your friends, and I
You just
think
wanna
that,
enjoy it, yeah.
yeah. And so like working on other people's music brought me back in. When I came back into Clarity, it was like, okay, no, I had fun doing that, and I want to have fun doing this.
Sure,
So,
yeah.
let's just make sure we keep that fun element of it. So yeah, it has. Other things I've done have definitely bled into Clarity for sure, in ways that, like, some ways you can hear like the lo-fi thing into romantic, and then in other ways more like in the background, right?
Yeah, yeah,
During the
yeah. I feel like I feel like because I did listen to your, like, solo stuff, and I think for me, it was, like, cool to get the perspective of like, okay, I know you from Clarity. I know you have like a specific sound in my head. And so like for like clips that we'd see or like things of that nature, I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like I wonder if that type of stuff will like make it into Clarity material, And I'm glad that I was positively delighted that there are a lot of elements that wind up making their way into that song, like, True Romantics, because obviously that's the one I can talk about that came out
Mm,
most currently. But um it's nice to hear that, and the influences don't feel like they're like conjoined to like a certain thing, right? Like it's like, oh, I
yeah.
have this solo project and oh, I am in Clarity. Like it's nice that you're able to kind of cross pollinate those two things. Obviously,
Mm.
I don't imagine a lot of Clarity stuff making it to the solo stuff, but I digress. But yeah, I was very excited about that. So it was good to hear those types of elements make their way into Clarity music. But that segues into the next question I have for you, Andy, which is a twofold question. One, for people who aren't familiar with Clarity and wind up clicking on this video to watch, which I highly recommend if you haven't checked out Clarity, links in the description. Go show them some love. I'll always show this band love, so please go do that. But um the first part of this two-part question is, what song would you recommend to a new listener to check out first? And the follow-up question to that would be, what's one Clarity song that you think is underrated?
Oh, okay. So to check out first, I would say, but I'm gonna be,
I know what you're gonna say.
if I'm being a good boy, I'm gonna say True Romantic, right?
Yeah, there you
Uh,
go.
check out True Romantic. But if it's not True Romantic, then I would say True Believer, which is
Oh, okay.
True Believer is the first song that the four current members ever wrote together.
Oh, I did not know that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that one, when we wrote that one and it came out the way it did, that felt very much like the beginning of the path to where we are now. So that's a good one to go back to, I think, True Believer. Then in terms of like which one I think is underrated, um, yeah, I do have one that I think is underrated,
Oh, okay.
even within the band, because I'm the only one who likes it.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Okay. So this is really,
yeah,
really underrated. Okay.
it's on EP2 and it's called A Monster Calls.
Oh, okay.
And I really love it, and I've loved it since day one. And we've played it live a few times, but somewhere around the time of the second DP coming out, um, the other members didn't feel quite as strongly about it as I did, so it kind of fell out of the set list. Um,
Aw.
and it used to be like we didn't have enough songs, so we had to play everything that we had. But then when we had the choice of like taking out certain songs and putting in certain songs, everybody turned out not to like A Monster Calls very much, except for me.
Aw.
And so I really like that. I think that's a pretty underrated song in our catalog. So if anyone is listening and they'd like to check that out, that would mean a lot to me.
There you go. I'll leave a link below to their YouTube channel. Go check it all out. I would say my underrated track is In the End, but I feel like everybody knows that by this point. I would say second underrated pick, Come Home. That one is still, I think that's still up there at the top for me. I love that song. The collab you did, I forget her name, but she crushed it too.
Yeah,
Kia, yeah, she
yeah,
shout
yeah.
outs to Kia, she did fantastic. So
Mhm.
definitely that to me, I feel like is a very true underrated track that I imagine you guys still play live. So I don't know, we'll find out.
Yeah, we do, man, we do.
There we go. The next question I have for you, Andy, is a fun one. If there was a song that you wish that you wrote, what song would it be?
Oh man, there's like hundreds. There's hundreds. If let's see, where am I right now? What do I wish I wrote right now? Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna say, just kind of going back to what we talked about earlier. I really, really, really love Mother Tongue from Amo.
Oh, yeah.
Just because I just think it's like in a different world, it could be a great pop song. Like
Okay, yeah, I can see it. Yeah, yeah,
I can hear Backstreet Boys singing that.
yeah.
That's a song that just you can take that melody and those lyrics and pluck it out of that arrangement and stick it on a different arrangement and it'll work. Like that's an out of the box hit, and I think it's, yeah, great. So I wish that I'd written that because it's really, really cool.
That's a good choice. I like that. And the last thing, Andy, because I obviously don't want to keep you here in Japan and it's the morning, so I'll let you enjoy the rest of your day. But The last thing I've been ending off all of my interviews with, I would say, over the past couple years, I love asking this question. For people who know me, know that I've been doing this for over 7 years. I love interviewing bands; it's a large passion of mine. But I want to know, because obviously we talked about a little bit of, having those moments of fallout between music and maybe reinvigorating that passion to
Mm.
make music and create music. I want to know why you continue to do it. Like, why is it an important staple in your life? Because, like you said, you have trouble, getting on the ball with like trying to release stuff, and like, you always feel like you guys are behind the eight ball in that aspect, and like,
Mm.
very easily you could be very discouraged on
Sure.
releasing music or continuing as a band. But what kind of drives you to continue doing it, and why you continue to write stuff and make music?
Um, well, I can't speak for the other three members, but for me, um, it's very difficult for me to imagine myself not making music in
Sure.
some way or another. Like, I can't really, like, it's so hard to talk about this without sounding like a pretentious asshole, but like
Go ahead.
it
I'll
just
I'll back you up. I'm gonna say you're not. So
it just seems like such an integral part of who I am now that if I didn't have it, I just don't know who I'd be. You know,
sure. Yeah.
I feel like I'd be a different person. Not that that would be a bad thing necessarily, but like it's hard for me to imagine. Like, I've been making music in some way or another since I was like 11, and
Ooh.
so like, you know, even if Clarity were to like break up or something, like, I mean, you can see in the video, like, I have a keyboard in front of me and like a
Yeah.
machine here, like I'm always working on something, and a lot of the stuff I make doesn't even get released or even made with a view to release it at all. Sometimes it's just something I want to sit down and do, and so like, why do I make music? I guess like because I can't imagine myself not doing it,
Sure. Yeah.
if that makes sense. Like, it's just yeah, I can't imagine. I find it very, very difficult to imagine a version of me that doesn't make music, and I guess that's the best answer I've got.
No, 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 no. I love that, because I think it's like, and I say this a lot, and when I answer, get this question answered, I think for me it's like, this is very much an identity for me, right? Like interviewing bands, like this I would say like a large people know me from doing this, right? Or like people that I know are like, "Hey, I saw you on YouTube. That's crazy." Like,
Mm,
and they're
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
"You're not an asshole in real life." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not. That's crazy. I know. Wild concept. All that YouTube money didn't go to my head." To me, it's like I find that like when people really genuinely, and I obviously know you're genuine about it, but like when people are like, I don't know if I would be the same person, right? Like I
Mm,
would just be living this like I would be living this life that would otherwise seem unfulfilled, right? In
yeah,
some way, and so I actually find a lot of comfort in knowing that other creatives in that way are like, I don't know who I would be without like creating something. I think
yeah,
that's kind of the inherent nature of like people who are artists, right? I think that
yeah.
they have this inherent nature to create, or have that like that urge, that like
Yeah,
feeling in your chest where you're like, fuck, if I don't make something, like,
mm.
is it worth it, right? And that sounds very like grandiose, right?
No, I
It
know what
sounds
you mean, though.
crazy,
I
but
get
I
what
but
you
I
mean.
but I think it's like it's it's such an inherent part of like, I think, artistry. Like I think if
Mm,
you don't, I feel like if you aren't about it in that way or in that capacity, like you're not, as you were saying earlier, you're not really committing to the nature of being an artist, right? I think that
right.
like you want to have this genuine aspect to what you do. If you aren't fully committing yourself to knowing that this is a passion of yours, or that this is something that you want to do, then people are going to, especially I would argue, other artists are going to be able to pick that stuff out very quick, and
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I think
yeah.
that like, for people who are always like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to answer this, or this is going to make me sound pretentious, or I'm going to sound like a big douchebag for saying it. I don't really feel like that's the case. Like, I think if anything, it like really fully cements the fact that like you do it because you love doing it. Like, you wouldn't have seen a life without it, you know. And I think that that's like an important aspect to creating, and that you fully are putting your, you know, you're putting yourself into the music. And I think that that's kind of like the biggest compliment I can probably give to any artist I have on.
Well, thank you so much for understanding. I mean, that's great. And one thing that I would draw just for anybody listening, like who might be kind of taking the wrong impression from what I said, maybe like the one line I would draw is that like I don't think it's necessary like what you just said is absolutely true. Like there is like this urge, this kind of undeniable kind of inherent drive to create something.
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think the fulfillment can come from the creation alone. Like
Agreed.
the,
Agreed.
I don't think you have to show anybody necessarily. Like I don't think you have to release it. I don't think it has to be something that you do to get validation from other people telling you it's good. Like obviously that's great if you feel confident enough to do that and you want to do that. That's fantastic. But like I know from me too. Like I've got a lot of stuff on my hard drive that I'll never put out, but just the 2 hours that I took to sit down and put it down, like just made me feel better to get it out. You know.
Sure. Yeah.
So like I think the act of creation in and of itself is can be fulfilling without taking it to the next step and showing it to anybody.
Yeah, it doesn't have to necessarily be like oh, I'm going to show you what I'm doing kind of a thing. Like it could just be
Mm,
like, like I write a lot of guitar work. I haven't done it in a little bit, but like, I write guitar stuff all the time. Like, and so for me it's like a good experience for me to just write and record. And do I think I'm going to release any of this stuff? Maybe there's a chance, but that's also like similarly to people who ask me like what I do in my free time. Like I'm really trying to work on vocals, and I'm trying to like learn how to sing better, and like I've been doing that for the past couple years.
mm,
And I think it's like those things take time, like, and I think
yeah.
that like very similarly to, as much as just want to hear the next Clarity song, I know that like there is this time and attention to detail that you guys have about the project, and that you want to release it into the best way or best form it can be. So, I think for me, it's like, again, harkening back to a beginning part of this interview, it's like I'm very grateful to be a part of your journey for 7 years. 7.5 years of my existence doing YouTube. So I feel like for me, it's like I feel like I have a special spot on my channel all the time for clarity, because I feel like for me it's been I almost feel like in an extension it's almost a project to me, because I'm like, holy shit, like Andy's
Oh
been
man,
doing this for a while. Like I gotta do it. Like I gotta check it out and see what he's rocking with now,
thank you so
as a
much.
project. So I think for me it's very exciting. But for people who haven't checked out your stuff, now is the time to tell the people where they can find clarity at, what you have coming up in the next couple months, and anything else you would like to plug about the band.
Right. So we just released True Romantic, which is our seventh single.
Woo!
And got Hansel from Nightlife in it, which
Woo!
makes it extra tasty.
Is
Um, and yeah, so check that out. It's on Spotify and everything now, and the videos on YouTube. At the end of this month or at the beginning of next month, we're going to be releasing our next single. There is a teaser for it in the end of the True Romantic video, so take a listen to that. Our social medias are all Clarity Band JP. So if you go to Instagram, Twitter, all that jazz, type in TikTok as well. Although we're not so active on TikTok yet, but hopefully we will be in the future. Um, Clarity Band JP, you'll find us. And that's all there. I don't know if anybody here is watching this in Japan, but if you are, yesterday we just announced that we're having our first ever kind of show that we're putting on ourselves.
woo!
Um, it's going to happen in Shimokitazawa on September 16th. So if anybody is watching this in Japan, head over to our Twitter, check out the links, and yeah, we'll see you in Shimokitazawa.
I can't say that shit, so I'm not gonna. But definitely go see them in Japan if you do live in Japan. I haven't seen Clarity, but you can bet your ass I'm gonna try to plan. I want to go to Japan, so
Get over here, man. Get over here.
Sometime it will happen, and once that happens, I'm just gonna try to plan it around a Clarity show because I feel like that if I'm there, I feel
Right?
like I gotta see a Clarity show, you know. So
Happen.
so let's hope the travel gods will help me out on that. So, guys, definitely listen. I've already said it once. I'll say it 1,000 more times. Say it a million times here on the channel. I if I had a wall of important bands I've had on my channel, Clarity is like number one on the list. You know, because I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be doing this shit if it wasn't for Andy. And that's not because I've known. I would say because he was the first interview I've ever done. Period. He's gonna be my favorite. So no offense to any other bands I've had on. I love all of you, but I have a very special place in my heart for Andy. That I have had a lot of my favorite bands on here. So to be fair, you know which ones are my favorites and which aren't. But Andy is definitely top of the list because he used the catalyst to start 7 years worth of doing YouTube. So I want to give a shout outs to Andy. And again, Clarity. Go check out their new song, True Romantic. It is a bop. If you haven't listened to this band, stop sleeping under a rock. Go check them out. Links in the description to go find out about them, their music. Go follow them on TikTok. Go subscribe to their YouTube channel. Tell them I sent you. Hansel from Nightlife, come on the show. Would love to have you. I'm trying to think what else I could plug. Oh, check out some of their old stuff. Also really good. If you can pick up merch, I don't know what Japan shipping's like, but maybe
Oh,
I'll
we
check
fixed
it out.
Yeah, there was an issue with that. The website that we used had automatically set like international shipping at like a really high rate, and we didn't realize that it had done that, but we fixed it now. It's not so expensive anymore. So we were wondering like, why isn't anyone buying anything from overseas? And then we checked it, like, oh my god, it's like 3 times as expensive
Yeah.
as like this item to like ship it. So no, we fixed that now. So if anyone wants to go and buy something from our online store, you can go do that.
I will do that. So definitely because I wasn't gonna pay 3 times the shipping, but now I'm gonna pay like maybe 1.5 times the shipping because I love Clarity. So please go check them out. Go show them some love. If you enjoyed this interview, share, like, and subscribe. It goes a long way. I am trying to hit 5K. I'm a little over halfway there right now. So if you could help me get to 5K, that would be amazing. So please hit that subscribe button. And obviously, love Andy. So Andy, thanks for coming back on again.
No, thanks so much for having me on, man. And going back to what you said about like me being an original interview for you, it's so good for me to see you going from strength to strength every year, building up that subscriber base and keeping going strong. So yeah, good to be back. Always happy to be here.